Hello, Washington Commanders fan. I have extremely tough news to digest, but it needs to be said with all clarity and honesty, and you will want to hear every word because it completely defines the future of our franchise. Although we still have 6 games left in this season, many fans have already begun to fully focus on the offseason, which promises to be absolutely crucial for General Manager Adam Peters. We were expected to have another strong playoff run this year. We were seen as a team on a meteoric rise with a young superstar quarterback at the helm, but we only managed to secure 3 miserable wins in 11 games, and any remote hope of playoffs has long since faded. Monumental changes are coming to the roster, and I'm going to show you exactly 7 names among players and coaches who definitely will not make it past December. Subscribe to the channel now and hit the bell because you can't miss any updates about this rebuild, and leave a like if you agree that radical changes are necessary. Let's start by making it clear what the real situation is in which we currently find ourselves. The Commanders are too old, too slow, and lacking explosiveness at practically every position. An urgent injection of young energy is desperately needed, and the changes that Adam Peters will make during the offseason will be absolutely crucial in determining how long it will take for Washington to solidify its place in the NFL elite again. For some players and coaches I will mention, the remaining games will serve as a kind of final test to prove their worth. For others, the future is already completely secured and guaranteed. And unfortunately for many, the impending departure of the organization seems simply inevitable, no matter what happens in the coming weeks. With that in mind, let me show you these 7 names that likely won't make it past December, when the situation really becomes critical and tough decisions need to be made. The first name on the list is Jason Simmons, who is currently the Commanders' passing game coordinator, and this situation is particularly delicate. Coach Dan Quinn places extreme value on loyalty above almost everything. It's a fundamental element of the cultural shift he has implemented in the Washington Commanders since he arrived, but he simply cannot let that loyalty become his personal downfall and that of the franchise. Changes are absolutely necessary in the coaching staff, and this applies not only to players on the field. The coaching staff also urgently needs new ideas and fresh perspectives to successfully move the franchise forward. Quarterbacks coach Tavita Pritchard will leave the position after Sunday night's game against the Denver Broncos because he has secured the head coaching position at Stanford, which is disappointing for the Commanders, but no one would deny him the chance to lead his alma mater. However, Pritchard will likely not be the only coach leaving this organization. Much will depend on the specific plans that Quinn has for the offseason, but it would be an absolutely huge surprise if there aren't some significant changes to the defensive coaching staff after the end of the 2025 season. This puts Jason Simmons under intense scrutiny and tremendous pressure. The Commanders' passing game coordinator simply failed to extract the maximum potential from his team throughout the season. The young players, except for rookie Trey Amos, who was selected in the second round of the draft, have made absolutely no progress. The veterans are regressing at an alarming and concerning rate, so his situation is becoming increasingly precarious with no real prospect for substantial improvement. If Quinn honestly believes that a change is necessary at this coordinator position, Simmons will certainly be among those who will surely be fired without much ceremony when the time comes. The second name that likely won't survive December is Nick Allegretti from the offensive line, and this is an interesting situation. If there is a silver lining for the Washington Commanders amid so much absolute negativity, it's the offensive line, which has been one of the few unaddressed issues. There's a good chance that General Manager Adam Peters will manage to maintain continuity in the starting quintet. The 5-time Pro Bowl selection Laramie Tunsil, who specializes in protecting the blind side, and promising first-round rookie Josh Connerly Jr. form a tackle duo with an absolutely bright future ahead. Sam Cosmi returns to the right guard position after being sidelined for almost an entire year due to that devastating anterior cruciate ligament tear. Tyler Biadasz is expected to return as center in the last year of his current contract. And left guard Chris Paul is performing so well that he's assured an extended stay beyond this season without a doubt. After those 5 starters, things become increasingly uncertain and murky. Nick Allegretti's transfer to Washington simply hasn't brought the expected results even remotely. He will be an extremely costly backup next season if he stays, but the Commanders will likely have to bear a significant portion of the transfer cost to get rid of him in any case. It's the kind of signing that seemed to make sense on paper, but simply didn't work on the field, and it's pointless to insist on a mistake just because we invested money. The third name is probably the most obvious and painful of all, Marshon Lattimore, the cornerback who was one of the big bets of the season. Adam Peters genuinely believed that the Commanders were in a potentially profitable position before the 2024 trade deadline, and he responded aggressively. He traded for cornerback Marshon Lattimore, a 4-time Pro Bowl selection, who brought to the franchise the theoretical ability to completely shut down the opposing offense. Peters was absolutely right to attempt a bold, big signing considering where we were, but this particular trade simply didn't work out in any way. Lattimore's chronic injury problems unfortunately followed him all the way to Washington. When the defender was actually on the field and available to play, his performance was consistently below expectations and disappointing. And that horrendous ACL tear against the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday Night Football only drastically worsened his already delicate situation. The Commanders cannot absolutely let sentimentality or wounded pride interfere with the future of the entire franchise. Lattimore's extremely inconsistent performance, coupled with the concerning fact that he will be out for a considerable period. Recovering makes it almost certain that he will be released with no additional costs, saving a substantial $18.5 million that could be much better invested in other needy areas. The fourth name on the list is Zach Ertz, the veteran tight end, and this is a difficult decision for emotional reasons. The Commanders offered Zach Ertz a one-year contract this offseason, even though the veteran tight end is not getting any younger. His reliable ball handling ability, his growing leadership in the locker room, and the genuine connection with superstar quarterback Jaden Daniels were more than enough to ensure yet another commitment from the organization. Ertz remains a decent and reliable player to this day. He no longer has the same explosiveness or ability to gain significant yards after the catch that he had at his peak, but he still knows how to expertly get open. He identifies vacant spaces in coverage and continues to be a solid and reliable piece in the red zone when we need to score. The big question that no one wants to ask, but needs to be asked, is whether this will really be enough to justify a third consecutive contract in Washington. Ertz recently turned 35, and the Commanders urgently need to rejuvenate the roster at absolutely every position without exception. Fans still don't definitively know if Ben Sinnott can establish himself as a reliable long-term starter, but there are several interesting options available in free agency or the draft should the management strategically decide to part ways with the three-time Pro Bowl selectee. The fifth name is potentially the most impactful of all because it involves a change in the coaching staff. Joe Witt Jr., the defensive coordinator. Dan Quinn faced an absolutely agonizing decision just before the bye week that no one wanted him to have to make. The Washington Commanders' defense was a constant and public embarrassment, demonstrating an obvious lack of motivation and basic organization. The players did not appear properly prepared and could not execute the game plan established week after week. The coach finally clearly realized what was happening before his eyes and personally took on the responsibilities of calling the defensive plays, replacing coordinator Joe Witt Jr. Undoubtedly, this was extremely emotionally difficult for both. Quinn and Witt developed a strong personal bond during the considerable time they worked together at the Dallas Cowboys previously. There is mutual trust and a close connection between the two men, but the assistant knew exactly what would happen after one more humiliating capitulation. The improvements demonstrated against the Miami Dolphins, although not the best opponents, strongly suggest that Witt was indeed the main problem. This is obviously debatable, and there are other factors. But if the same positive trend continues in the coming weeks under Quinn's direct command, the Commanders will definitely be looking for a new defensive coordinator during the offseason without a doubt. The sixth name is Jeremy McNichols, the veteran running back, and this situation is interesting. The dynamic among the Commanders' running backs will be something that fans will closely monitor during the upcoming offseason and training camp. Chris Rodriguez Jr. has taken on the primary responsibility of the backfield and is doing more than enough to easily secure another contract with general manager Adam Peters. Although the meteoric rise of rookie Jackery Kroski-Merritt, selected in the 7th round of the draft, has considerably diminished throughout the season, he should significantly improve with another full offseason to hone his skills and adapt. This gives the Commanders two promising young running backs to build around, but it certainly won't be enough for complete rotation. Any new arrival through the draft or free agency could inevitably push veteran Jeremy McNichols completely out when the situation gets critical and decisions need to be made. McNichols secured a spot on the 53-man roster relatively easily during the summer. He returned to being a supporting and backup player, but showed potential when he was eventually called upon. Furthermore, his consistent performance on special teams is noteworthy and valuable, so of all the names on this extensive list, the former standout from Boise State could possibly be the one chosen for a new chance if there is room. However, this is definitely not a guarantee of anything considering all the circumstances. And finally, the seventh name that rounds out our list is Jonathan Jones, the veteran cornerback. As I mentioned earlier, the Commanders' secondary defense has been a monumental disappointment this entire season. Most fans and experts confidently expected this area of the field to become a significant strength for Coach Dan Quinn, given his experience. What happened was exactly the opposite of what was expected. So a significant and comprehensive overhaul is absolutely necessary to get things back on the right track. There will certainly be several important personnel changes throughout the secondary. There may even be some strategic alterations in the coaching staff as well, just to ensure that all angles are covered. In any case, things definitely do not look very promising for Jonathan Jones at this moment. The Commanders specifically signed Jones this offseason with high expectations. He is a two-time Super Bowl champion with solid credentials, and was expected to provide a steady and reliable presence in the rotation, with the valuable experience of having gone far in the playoffs multiple times. Unfortunately, persistent injuries and extremely inconsistent performances have severely hampered his ability to make a significant and measurable impact. Jones honestly thought he was joining a genuinely competitive team with a real shot at a title. That has absolutely not been the case in any way, so he is probably eager to face a different new challenge when he becomes a free agent next spring and can choose his destination. So look at the magnitude of what we are talking about here. 7 important people among veteran players and coaching staff members who will likely no longer be here when we start the next season. This shows the depth of the changes that need to happen to get this franchise back on track. It's not just a tweak here and there. We are talking about a significant overhaul that will shake the entire structure of the team. And look, I understand it's hard to see players we like leaving, especially veterans like Zach Ertz who have given everything for this jersey. But the cruel reality of the NFL is that you cannot let sentimentality interfere with decisions that affect the future of the entire franchise. Adam Peters will have to be ruthless in these decisions, and Dan Quinn will have to swallow his pride and accept that changes in the coaching staff are also necessary, even if that means letting go of close friends like Joe Witt Jr. The question now is whether Peters has the courage and vision necessary to make all these difficult changes at once, or if he will try to do it gradually, risking wasting another season. We also need to see if Quinn will resist the temptation to defend his assistants out of loyalty when clearly they are not delivering results. The next 6 games will serve as final auditions for some of these guys, but for most, their fate is already practically sealed no matter what happens. It's an uncomfortable situation for everyone involved, but it's the brutal reality of professional sports, where results are all that ultimately matters. It's going to be an absolutely fascinating offseason to follow, because literally, the future of the franchise for the coming years will be defined by the decisions made in the next few months. So the final question I leave for you to ponder deeply and respond in the comments is, considering these 7 names who will likely not survive December and the monumental changes ahead, do you believe that Adam Peters and Dan Quinn have the courage necessary to make a complete and radical clean out of the roster and coaching staff, even if it means letting go of beloved veterans and close friends? Or will excessive loyalty and the fear of making drastic changes condemn us to repeat the same mistakes and waste more precious years of Jaden Daniels' opportunity window while he is still on a cheap rookie contract?